budget, can I send it along? All they need to say is a yes. And normally their response will be quite brief. Yes, it sounds like it might be a fit. You can send it along here. I'll let you know what I think. At which point you can send it along. If they don't get back to you, you can, we talk about the persistence part here. If they don't get back to you, you can get back to them in about 7 days. If they don't get back to you even after that, you can try them again. Generally, I do about a month later. So something along those lines. The objective here, to be quite clear, is not to contribute one article. The objective here is to get yourself into a regular succession on a column. So if you send over one article that does well, okay, people dig it, they post it, it works, and then you quickly follow that up with another article that also does well. When I say quickly, I mean within like the next 2 or 3 weeks. Then you can go ahead and approach them about writing a regular column. And again, normally this is for free, so people usually aren't going to put up their dukes. If you've given them 2 great pieces of free content and they know that you can continue to deliver the goods, after they've published 2 of them, they really feel like you probably are the real deal and are normally quite happy to work with you. Now, whether you do a monthly or a weekly column or even a quarterly really depends on 2 things. Number 1, how much time do you have to write, or does your writer have to write? And number 2, what are most of the columns on their website like? If there's a lot of weekly columns on their website, for example, I write for a site called Marketing Land, okay? There's a lot of monthly columns on Marketing Land, not weekly. So on Marketing Land, I write a monthly column. If this is a place where there's a lot of weekly columns, you might be able to do weekly. And in some senses, the more the merrier, if you can add more content there and drive some more links and authority for yourself. And deliver more value to them in a shorter span of time. But again, it depends on how much time you have and what the normal pace of a column rhythm is for them. The objective really when you have a column is to get an author login. So this is just sort of a fact of life here. If you constantly have to send Word documents to people in order for your articles to be published, you are always a bit of an annoyance to an editor. Because even when they're glad to have content they didn't have to pay for, they now have to manually copy and paste and yada yada, and you're counting on them not having a sick day, them not driving their kid to a soccer game. You really want to get beyond the send me an article via Microsoft via email phase. You really want to graduate from that. So the goal is to get yourself an author login. If they say yes to a weekly or a monthly column and you send them 3 or 4 articles, you might say something like, hey, I feel pretty, I'm really glad to be able to contribute with you folks. I feel pretty bad that I keep having to bother you every time I put something together. I imagine you guys have some kind of an author login there on the site. I'd be happy to upload them and then you guys can just approve them right from there. Does that work for you? I think it'd take a lot of work off your shoulders. Does that work for you? And very often folks will say yes to that if they have the option available. Next up, we'll talk about how to deliver real legitimate mutual benefit from a content marketing strategy. It's certainly possible to create content without doing yourself or other people much good. The objective here would be to make yourself and the publication quite happy over time by working together. So first and foremost, what is your content strategy on their site? My best advice here is to merge your value proposition to the interest and value proposition of the publication. Okay, so if I teach self-defense and self-protection and I'm writing on a website that's all about general broad self-reliance, then the content that I would be writing probably wouldn't be really specific technical jujitsu techniques, because that's not this audience. Even if it's one of my favorite things, that's really not this audience. So in this particular case, we'd be teaching more really basic fundamental self-defense in situations where you might need to handle yourself. So we're taking our own value proposition, which might be simple self-defense techniques, and we're applying it to what their audience and general value prop is, which is general self-reliance. These are not people that are trained. These might not be people that have ever really seriously considered martial arts, but maybe they've thought about it, once or twice. So we take our general value prop, simple close quarters combat, and we mesh that in with our given market, and we maybe present simpler techniques in sort of regular everyday situations that people could use. So merging your value prop with that of the publication allows you to continuously produce content that's useful and relevant for you when you get the traffic, but is also useful and relevant for the publication. So generally when you come up with an article idea, you should ask yourself, is this a good match between those two value props? As for linking, in an ideal world here, you really want to link out twice to some kind of authoritative website for any given one link that you send to any of your own websites. No publisher is going to want to see you on there not citing anybody other than yourself. The odds are, no matter who you are listening to this, there is somebody else who is also very good at what you do, and there are other sources that you can link to as relevant expertise and relevant useful resources for the readers. So all links should add value to the article. All links should add value to the article. So if I write an article on marketingland.com, and this article is entirely about building your first 6 autoresponder messages in your email automation campaign, I might not have the time to write much more than a single paragraph about crafting a great subject line, but I might link to one of my own articles about crafting a great subject line. So if people want to dig deeper, they have a relevant, value-added place to go to sort of add richness to the experience of that article. So links should not be thrown in pell-mell or randomly. They should be value additions to the article, additional resources, additional sort of rabbit holes, if you will, of value for the reader. So similarly, I'm not the only person who's ever written about subject lines. HubSpot, who's a publicly traded marketing automation software business, they've written some fantastic pieces about their own split tests with subject lines and kind of general best practices. So I might actually link out to them. For any one given link I'd send to myself, I want to send 2 elsewhere. Number one, you don't want to make your publisher boot you off, and you don't want to come across like the kind of person that literally considers yourself to be the only expert in a given area. And number two, even for search engine optimization purposes, if you're only linking to yourself, there's a reasonable shot you might be booting off some red flags at Google. So there's benefit all around to linking to places outside of yourself. And you can also, in addition to linking places other than yourself, you can link to other guest articles you've written on other sites. So in this particular case, you're giving juice to another place where you contribute content, where you might also have a link back to you. So you don't actually have to link directly to your own website all the time, because you can drive a bit of authority to a post that you might have written a while ago on another publication. But the point is, if you're linking to anything of your own, which, in general, in every article or every other article you might, depending on the rules you're working with, you want to have 2 links, at least this is my general best practice, to other very authoritative, value-added articles or resources that someone could learn from. And lastly here, if you want to build a real lasting relationship with these publishers, the goal would be, at least within your first month, to reach out at least once, and then I would recommend maybe 3 months later to do the same, reach out at least once to the editor and brainstorm a bit with them and say, hey, I'm thinking through these 3 topics for the coming month as maybe a theme of articles. What do you think, and what would be most helpful to you? And let them help you pick among those options and help determine sort of the direction of some of your editorial. This lets them know that you consider them, and this also lets them help you craft the kind of content that their audience would love. So by actually being a part of their team, you can deliver more value for them in that sense and build a better relationship altogether. So with that being said, this is the basic content marketing strategy that I use, probably the only one that I'm married to in literally all of the businesses that I'm running here today, and I hope that it's helpful for inbound marketing for your company as well.